want more, and I hope for more love in the hearts of the ones we've been waiting for. We are those ones, if only we will trust ourselves. Oh, I send you love. I hope that you'll like this song I'ma play while we get to the top of the hour, when now then read the artist's way about recovering our faith. This song seems so befitting. I have never heard it, but it is called Off the Grid Acoustic with Austin Brown. I just found it this morning as we went round.
I can't breathe, I can't sleep. Have you looked at the news lately? I need space, I can't think. Why is everyone so angry? In a world with so much to be grateful for, I'm done keeping up with my neighbor's war, trying to get offline and take time to find myself. I'm going off the grid, tilling the land with my hands like my granddaddy did. I'm gonna take the phone, turn it off, take a breath, talk to God. I need to clear my head. I'm going off the grid. Fresh air and lightning bugs. No, I could never get enough. Warm bed and old truck. No, I don't need all of that other stuff, 'cause out here I feel like a man in the promised land, taking a break from the world, doing all I can. Oh, I'm going off the grid, tilling the land with my hands like my granddaddy did. I'm gonna take the phone, turn it off, take a breath, talk to God. I need to clear my head. I'm going off the grid. Unplug and unwind. Look up and spend time off the grid. I'm going off the grid. Until I'm the land with my hands like my granddaddy did. Oh, I'm gonna take the phone, turn it off, take a breath, talk to God. I need to clear my head. I'm going off the grid. I'm going off the grid. Off the grid.
I love it. Wow.
What's up, y'all? Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this acoustic cover of a song
of a song
that I released earlier or later last year called Off the Grid. This song really means a lot to me. I hope it speaks to you as well. It's a song about how we all need to get off our phones sometimes. We all just need to get off the internet. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful, incredible tool. It has brought us together, and I love it. But we got to make sure that we're taking time off the grid to listen to that small, still voice inside and be good to our.
Amen. We've got to unplug and just get back to our center. I was definitely feeling that myself this morning, I'll admit. And yesterday, when I was at a friend's, and then we meditated, and he was taking longer and upstairs, and I just was in a total funk, and it was just like, I gotta go. And my fight and flight kicked in, and it was like, I left and didn't even wait to say goodbye. I just needed to go. And it was just like, yo, not the way to go. And yeah, that was what I did, because that was where I was at yesterday. And it was just like, I'm paying for it because I'm making myself pay for it. So, Brian, I apologize. And I'll definitely do better next time. But I feel like it's significant as to likely what is going to come up today and what we're going to read together. And I will also say that I wanted to start today's sacred service, the Sacred Self-Compassion Service, by reading an excerpt from the next piece of work that I am going to likely do next Sunday, though with this being the end of the Artist's Way, I'm going to really figure out what is going to be coming from here. And so this morning I wanted to actually read you just the first piece, which is called The Story of Your Soul. And I would love for you to understand the toll that being constantly available online, the toll that takes on our soul. And so I just want to read you something that might help you remember who you truly are, where you came from, and why you're here. Imagine you are a prince. One day your parents, the king and queen, send you on a mission to a distant land. You must find a pearl guarded by a hungry dragon. You take off your royal robe and leave the kingdom of your parents. You journey to this distant land, putting on dirty clothes and disguising yourself as one of her people. Somehow, the people of this land discover that you are a foreigner. They give you food that makes you forget your royal birth and makes you believe that you are one of them. You sink into a dark sleep, into a deep sleep. Your parents see your plight and send you a letter that tells you to awaken. It reminds you of your quest to recover the pearl. You remember who you are, a child of kings. You remember who you are, a child of kings. You quickly subdue the dragon, retrieve the pearl, and depart, leaving the dirty clothing behind. When you return to your native land, you see your royal robe, which reminds you of the splendor you lived in before. The garment speaks to you, telling you that it belongs to the one who is stronger than all humans. You put on your royal robe once more and return to your father's palace. The soul of man and woman is feminine in relation to the masculine or spirit portion of being. The soul is therefore often referred to as she. And how significant that today, here in North America, we celebrate Mother's Day. So to all the mothers out there, my appreciation and gratitude goes to you, whether you have children in the flesh or not, because right now we're all called to really evoke the mother energies, to understand that collectively we share a humanity that is needing our strength, that is needing us all to really step up and play at a higher level than we ever have before. Because we didn't understand we needed to necessarily, because we forgot who we are. We forgot why we came here. And that is why we are really being called to rekindle the faith within our own hearts. And it is the final chapter of The Artist's Way that we have been reading and working through over the last 12 weeks. So thank you. Regardless of whether you haven't tuned into any of the last services or whether this is your first, it's perfect, because everything that you tune into, that's the medicine that you need, including the story that I shared before, the story of your soul, when I shared about the upheaval that I went through yesterday when I just didn't know what to do with my own self and just removed myself from the situation, even though we were going to be going out in nature, which is what I needed to go to now. And sometimes we have that sense of urgency and that need to just do it now. And when we're in that space, that is because we're not present in our own hearts. We haven't called ourselves back into our body. We haven't grounded ourselves in this moment. So recognize when there's that, it's because you haven't grounded yourself, like I hadn't done yesterday and didn't do until after I damaged a dynamic that didn't need to be damaged. But because I was irresponsible in how I responded to the energy that was just coming up in me, and I just needed to be away from where I was, that showed up for me because it was a lesson, just as my sharing this with you may kindle something in you to be burned away in the flames of the violet flame that we were all gifted to help in transmuting karma. And the violet flame was gifted by Saint Germain as a tool for transmuting personal karma as well as collective karma. And so when we are exposed to these, which on Thursday nights at 7:00 Eastern Standard Time, I've been reading Saint Germain on alchemy for the whole year so far. And we're now on the Threefold Flame, which is in the secret chamber of the heart, which is behind the heart chakra. So it's a tool that I would love to be able to share, and there are videos if you are interested. I'll post it into the comments after the fact so you can come back. And if you do like the video, I appreciate it. And so on that note, we will get into the reason you came here today, which is for recovering a sense of faith. In this final week, we acknowledge the inherently mysterious spiritual heart of creativity. We address the fact that creativity requires receptivity and profound trust, capacities we have developed through our work in this course. We set our creative aims and take a special look at last-minute sabotage. Why did I show up with that story this morning without really understanding? Everything works out if we stay in the flow and are not afraid of calling ourselves out for the things that we could shame ourselves about, or instead could grow through and allow others to do too by our example and willingness to be vulnerable, not for the sake of someone else exploiting that, though some will, because power dynamics mean that the bully needs to steal power from others in order to make themselves feel better about themselves. But instead, to be willing to work through the process we're all going through ourselves in a way that just says, hey, we're mirrors to one another. We renew our commitment to the use of the tools. And each of these are what we can use to get ourselves through those moments when we're feeling unsettled. So here we go. Trusting. Adventures don't begin until you get into the forest. That first step is an act of faith. Mickey Hart, Grateful Dead drummer. Creativity requires faith. Faith requires that we relinquish control. This is frightening, and we resist it. Our resistance to our creativity is a form of self-destruction. We throw up roadblocks on our own path. Why do we do this? In order to maintain an illusion of control. Depression, like anger and anxiety, is resistance, and it creates dis-ease. This manifests itself as sluggishness, confusion. I don't know. The truth is, we do know, and we know that we know. Each of us has an inner dream that we can unfold if we will just have the courage to admit what it is. and the faith to trust our own admission. The admitting is often very difficult. A clearing affirmation can often open the channel. One excellent one is, I know the things I know. Another is, I trust my own inner guide. Either of these will eventually yield us a sense of our own direction, which we will often then promptly resist. This resistance is really very understandable. We are not accustomed to thinking that God's will for us and our own inner dreams can coincide. Instead, we have bought the message of our culture. This world is a vale of tears, and we are meant to be dutiful and then die. The truth is that we are meant to be bountiful and live. Because if you actually spell evil backwards, that is when we get live, because the devil backwards is lived. And if we are in fear, we are not living fully. When we are in fear, that is when God is masquerading as a dog, backed into a corner, ready to bite anything that comes at it, because survival living and thrival living, very different experiences and creative approaches for creativity and reactivity have the same letters in a Scrabble game. It's just where we put the C for creativity and the E for energy that determines the placement of the energy within the form of the word. The universe will always support affirmative action. Our truest dream for ourselves is always God's will for us. Mickey Hart's hero and mentor, the late great mythologist Joseph Campbell, wrote, "Follow your bliss, and doors will open where there were no doors before." It is the inner commitment to be true to ourselves and follow our dreams that triggers the support of the universe. While we are ambivalent, the universe will seem to us also to be ambivalent and erratic. The flow through our lives will be characterized by spurts of abundance and long spells of drought when our supply dwindles to a mere trickle. If we look back at the times when the world seemed to be a capricious and untrustworthy place, we see that we were ourselves ambivalent and conflicted in our goals and behaviors. Once we trigger an internal yes by affirming our truest goals and desires, the universe mirrors that and expands it. There is a path for each of us. When we are on our right path, we have a sure-footedness. We know the next right action, although not necessarily what is just around the bend. By trusting, we learn to trust. Mystery. Creativity, like human life itself, begins in darkness. We need to acknowledge this. All too often, we think only in terms of light, and then the light bulb went on and I got it. It is true that insights may come to us as flashes. It is true that some of these flashes may be blinding. It is, however, also true that such bright ideas are preceded by a gestation period that is interior, murky, and completely necessary. We speak often about ideas as brain children. What we do not realize is that brain children, like all babies, should not be dragged from the creative womb prematurely. Ideas like stalactites and stalagmites form in the dark inner cave of consciousness. They form in drips and drops, not by squared off building blocks. We must learn to wait for an idea to hatch, or to use a gardening image. We must learn to not pull our ideas up by the roots to see if they are growing. Mulling on the page is an artless art form. It is fooling around. It is doodling. It is the way that ideas slowly take shape and form until they are ready to help us see the light. All too often, we try to push, pull, outline, and control our ideas instead of letting them grow organically. The creative process is a process of surrender, not control. Mystery is at the heart of creativity. That and surprise. All too often, when we say we want to be creative, we mean that we want to be able to be productive. Now, to be creative is to be productive, but by cooperating with the creative process, not forcing it. As creative channels, we need to trust the darkness. We need to learn to gently mull instead of churning away like a little engine on a straight-ahead path. This mulling on the page can be very threatening. I'll never get any real ideas this way, we fret. Hatching an idea is a lot like baking bread. An idea needs to rise. If you poke at it too much at the beginning, if you keep checking on it, it will never rise. A loaf of bread or a cake, baking, must stay for a good long time in the darkness and safety of the oven. Open that oven too soon and the bread collapses, or the cake gets a hole in its middle because all the steam is rushed out of it. Creativity requires a respectful reticence. The truth is that this is how to raise the best ideas. Let them grow in dark and mystery. Let them form on the roof of our consciousness. Let them hit the page in droplets. Trusting this slow and seemingly random drip, we will be startled one day by the flash of, oh, that's it? Oh, not, oh, that's it. Oh, that's it! Exclamation mark instead of a question mark makes a huge difference. Do not fear mistakes. There are none. Miles Davis. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. Albert Einstein. What shakes the eye but the invisible? Theodore Rothko. The imagination at play. When we think about creativity, it is all too easy to think art with a capital A. For our purposes, capital A art is a scarlet letter, branding us as doomed. In order to nurture our creativity, we require a sense of festivity, even humor. Art, that's somebody my sister used to date. We are an ambitious society, and it is often difficult for us to cultivate forms of creativity that do not directly serve us and our career goals. Recovery urges our re-examining definitions of creativity and expanding them to include what in the past we called hobbies. The experience of creative living argues that hobbies are in fact essential in the joyful life. Then, too, there is the hidden benefit that they are also creatively useful. Many hobbies involve a form of artist brain mulling that leads to enormous creative breakthroughs. When I have screenwriting students stuck at the midpoint of Act 2, I ask them to please go do their household mending. They usually balk, offended by such a mundane task, but sewing has a nice way of mending up plots. Gardening is another hobby I often assign to creativity students. When someone is panicked halfway across the bridge into a new life, repotting plants into larger and better containers quite literally grounds that person and gives him or her a sense of expansion. Spiritual benefits accompany the practice of a hobby. There is a release into humility that comes from doing something by rote. As we serve our hobby, we are freed from our ego's demands and allowed the experience of merging with a greater source. This conscious contact frequently affords us the perspectives needed to solve vexing personal and creative conundrums. It is a paradox of creative recovery that we must get serious about taking ourselves lightly. We must work at learning to play. Creativity must be freed from the narrow parameters of capital A art and recognized as having much broader play, that word again. As we work with our morning pages and artist dates, many forgotten samplings of our own creativity may come to mind. I had forgotten all about those paintings I did in high school. I loved painting those flats in Dramatech. I suddenly remembered I played Antigone. Who could forget her? I don't know if I was any good, but I remember I loved it. I'd forgotten all about the skits I wrote when I was 10. I set them all to Ravel's Bolero, to Ravel's Bolero, no matter what they were about. I made my brothers and sisters swoon about the living room. I used to tap dance. I know you can't believe it now, but I was something. As we write, digging ourselves out of denial, our memories, dreams, and creative plans all move to the surface. We discover anew that we are creative beings. The impulse cooks in us all, simmering along all the time, without our knowledge, without our encouragement, even without our approval. It moves beneath the surface of our lives, showing showing in bright flashes like a penny in our stream of thought, like new grass under snow. We are intended to create. We refurbish a dowdy kitchen, tie bows on a holiday cat, experiment with a better soup. The same child who brewed perfume from a dab of this and a dash of that, half dish soap and part cinnamon, grows up to buy potpourri and to boil a spice pot that says Christmas. As gray, as controlled, as dreamless as we may strive to be, the fire of our dreams will not stay buried. The embers are always there, stirring in our frozen souls like winter leaves. They won't go away. They are sneaky. We make a crazy doodle in a boring meeting. We post a silly card on our office board. We nickname the boss something wicked. Plant twice as many flowers as we need. Restive in our lives. We yearn for more. We wish, we chafe. We sing in the car, slam down the phone, make lists, clear closets, sort through shelves. We want to do something, but we think it needs to be the right something, by which we mean something important. We are what's important, and the something that we can do, we are what's important, and the something that we do can be something festive, but small. Dead plants go, mismatched socks bite the dust. We are stung by loss, bitten by hope. Working with our morning pages, a new and gaudy life takes form. Who bought that azalea? Why the sudden taste for pink? Is this picture you've tacked up a you're going toward? Your shoes feel worn, you threw them out. There's a garage sale coming and you are playing host. You buy a first edition, splurge on new sheets. A friend worries once too often about what's come over you and you take your first vacation in years. The clock is ticking and you're hearing the beat. You stop by a museum shop, sign your name on a scuba diving sheet, and commit yourself to a Saturday mornings in the deep end. You're either losing your mind or gaining your soul. Life is meant to be an artist date. That's why we were created. Play is the exaltation of the possible. Martin Buber. For me, a painting is like a story which stimulates the imagination and draws the mind into a place filled with expectation, excitement, wonder, and pleasure. J.P. Houston, painter. Escape velocity. My friend Michelle has a theory born of long and tangled romantic experience. In a nutshell, it goes, when you're going to leave them, they know. This same theory applies to creative recovery. It occurs when you reach what Michelle calls escape velocity. As she puts it, there's this time for blast off, like a NASA space launch, and you're heading for it when, wham, you draw to the test. The test? Yeah, the test. It's like when you're all set to marry the nice guy, the one who treats you right, and Mr. Poison gets wind of it and phones you up. The whole trick is to evade the test. We all draw to us the one test that's our total nemesis, such as I shared at the beginning of this. We all draw to us the one test that's our total nemesis. A lawyer by trade and a writer by avocation and temperament. There are so many words that look different on the page until then you hear them aloud and it's like, oh, anyway, I'm just speaking out loud. A lawyer by trade and a writer by avocation and temperament, Michelle is fond of conspiracy theories, which she lays out in sinister detail. Think of it. You're all set to go to the coast on an important business trip, and your husband suddenly needs you. Capital N, for no real reason. You're all set to leave the bad job, that the answer was yes. I thought of all the times I'd been fooled. There was the agent who managed to undo done deals, but apologized so prettily. There was the editor who asked for rewrite upon rewrite until gruel was all that remained, but who always said I wrote brilliantly and was her brightest star. A little flattery can go a long way toward deterring our escape velocity. So can a little clash. So can a little cash. More sinister than either is the impact of a well-placed doubt can have. Particularly a for your own good, just wanting to make sure you've thought about this doubt, voiced by one of our nearest and dearest. As recovering creatives, many of us find that every time our career heats up, we reach for our nearest wet blanket. We blurt out our enthusiasm to our most skeptical friend. In fact, we call him up. If we don't, he calls us. This is the test. Our artist is a child, an inner youngster, and when he or she is scared, mummy is what's called for. Unfortunately, many of us have wet blanket mommies and a whole army of wet blanket surrogate mommies. Those friends who have our second, third, and fourth thoughts for us. The trick is not to let them be that way. How? Zip the lip. Bottom up. Button up. Keep a lid on it. Don't give away the gold. Always remember the first rule of magic is self-containment. You must hold your intention within yourself, stoking it with power. Only then will you be able to manifest what you desire. In order to achieve escape velocity, we must learn to keep our own counsel, to move silently among doubters, to voice our plans only among our allies, and to name our allies accurately. Make a list, those friends who will support me. Make another list, those friends who won't. Name your WBs for what they are, wet blankets. Wrap yourself in something else, dry ones, fluffy heated towels. Do not indulge or tolerate anyone who throws cold water in your direction. Forget good intentions. Forget they didn't mean it. Remember to count your blessings and your toes. Escape velocity requires the sword of steely intention and the shield of self-determination. They will try to get you. Don't forget that, warns Michelle. Set your goals and set your boundaries. I would add, set your sights and don't let the ogre that looms on the horizon deflect your flight. One does not discover new lands without consenting to lose sight of the shore for a very long time. Andre Gide. Tasks. Write down any resistance, anger, and fears you have about going on from here. We all have them. So, like I had shared at the beginning, if you were still here, I was with my friend and we did a meditation, and I did a violet flame meditation, but I could hear other things in the space, and I was just irritable and I hadn't slept enough. But there was also energy coming up within me or around me that I wasn't fully processing through. And so in that moment, as I read this, it's like, was that just the test that showed up that I didn't pass because I didn't stick around? Or was the test to follow what I was feeling? Though in that moment, I was just feeling energy that felt like I needed to move, and my friend wasn't moving as fast as what I needed to in that moment, and I just abandoned ship. I don't know whether I passed the test or whether I flunked the test or whether it was just part of it, because what happened after I had left was also something I feel like needed to happen. So who knows in this life, other than in our heart of hearts, we have to just let the dead bury the dead and leave the past in the past and let what happened be what happened without judging ourselves and making the next day a bad day because we are worried about what happened the day before, which we no longer have any power over. And the thing is that if people are going to judge us because of where we were in that moment, even though we recognized it and did our best to correct it, even though it didn't necessarily work out that way, the ones that can't let that go are ultimately not the ones that you can grow with. Because if somebody's going to hold on to who you were in the past when you made that mistake, are they really someone that you can bring into the future where you're going to grow and change and need people that can accept the newer version of you rather than the one that they needed you to be? Take a look at your current areas of procrastination. What are the payoffs in your waiting? Locate the hidden fears. Do a list on paper. Sneak a peek at week 1, core negative beliefs. Laugh. Yes, the nasty critters are still there. Note your progress. Read yourself the affirmations on page 36 and 37, and then write some affirmations about your continued creativity as you end the course. And since this is a shorter week, we're going to actually flip back to those limiting beliefs so that we can identify them and you have context. So, your enemy within, core negative beliefs. Most of the time, when we are blocked in an area of our life, it is because we feel safer that way. We may not be happy, but at least we know we are unhappy. Much fear of our own creativity is the fear of the unknown. If I am fully creative, what will it mean? What will happen to me and to others? We have some pretty awful notions about what could happen. So rather than find out, we decide to stay blocked. This is seldom a conscious decision. It is often more an unconscious response to internalize negative beliefs. In this week, we will work at uncovering our negative beliefs and discarding them. Here is a list of commonly held negative beliefs. I can't be a successful, prolific, creative artist because everyone will hate me. I will hurt my friends and family. I will go crazy. I will abandon my friends and family. I can't spell. I don't have enough good ideas. I will upset my mother or father. I will have to be alone. I will find out I am gay if straight. I will be struck straight if gay. I will do bad work and not know it and look like a fool. I will feel too angry. I will never have any real money. I will get self-destructive and drink, drug, or sex myself to death. I will get cancer, AIDS, or a heart attack, or the plague. My lover will leave me. I will die. I will feel bad because I don't deserve to be successful. I will have only one good piece of work in me. It's too late. If I haven't become a fully functioning artist yet, I never will. How black and white do those seem? And I say that because as someone that is a big vision thinker, and that's just part of my makeup, it's like sometimes I do get that here or there. It's like the fight between the fearful and the faithful, and then the faithfully fearful and the fearfully faithful. It's like there's this spectrum of total absolute extremes that is not fully helpful necessarily, because the point I feel of all of this is really about learning to come into balance with ourselves, which is why Thursday night at 7 o'clock is so significant with Saint Germain on alchemy and reading and learning about the threefold flame within the sacred chamber of the heart. When we come into balance, when one of those plumes of power, love, or wisdom are not overshadowing the others, then we have a greater chance at striking a balance and saying, okay, it's not fully fearful, it's not fully faithful, it's somewhere in between. And to understand that even those who have tremendous faith can have fear creep in. It's just knowing our place and how to actually shift that fear out so that it doesn't creep in too much to cast a shadow over the faith, and to understand that we have to have grace with our own selves to know it doesn't necessarily have to be all in or all out. It can maybe have a greater balance. I'm still learning, but I share that. And then on page 36 and 37, the creative affirmations that you can use to compensate for any of those extreme this way or that way perspectives. I am a channel for God's creativity, and my work comes to good. My dreams come from God, and God has the power to accomplish them. As I create and listen, I will be led. Creativity is the Creator's will for me. My creativity heals myself and others. I am allowed to nurture my artist. Through the use of a few simple tools, my creativity will flourish. Through the use of my creativity, I serve God. My creativity always leads me to truth and love. My creativity leads me to forgiveness and self-forgiveness, which, if you stick to the end, I will do a little I'll share a little forgiveness exercise. Actually, we'll just do it. If you're familiar with Hopono Ono, it's a phenomenal tool that you can use to really cut yourself free. And there was a time when I would walk and I would use it, which is only 4 statements. And it's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you can actually build up each of those statements. So you actually give yourself context for what you're sorry for, and please forgive me for, and then thank you for, I love you for being you. We have to just be graceful with ourselves and understand the subconscious sometimes needs time to really work through everything that comes to mind because it's showing up so that we can really work through it. And so if we recite, I'm sorry, I love you, thank you, please forgive me, in whatever order comes to you, just knowing those are the 4. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And personalize it. We take it to a level of transmutation and then to apply the violet flame to it too, which you can do by simply using 2 lines. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. So you can use that while you walk as well. And these are tools that I've been using over the last year, and they really work wonders. So if either of those feel like something you could use, I hope that you will, because the more tools that we have that we actually use, the better for us in our growth process. And being graceful with ourselves and knowing that we already have these tools that were given to us before a crisis hit mean that then instead of being in an unresourceful state, rather than seeing ourselves as being unresourceful, then we understand that we have some tools that we can pull off and we can pull into that unresourceful moment because in truth we've already practiced them, so they're familiar, which means that they are doable compared to calling somebody in a crisis and asking them to save us, and then they offer us a tool that's brand new, and then it just feels overwhelming because there's no familiarity. And the greatest grace and gift we can give ourselves in those moments is to offer ourselves something familiar that creates a sense of safety and certainty that then gives us the grace to launch off of a solid foundation that we created for ourselves in moments of peace, in moments when our creativity is actually available to us. And then we can say, oh, that feels really good, or that doesn't, because in those moments of crisis, we're already feeling like everything's unsafe for the most part. And so if we have something that we can bring in that had felt safe in a safe moment, then it can make that unsafe moment feel safer. There is a divine plan of goodness for me. As I listen to the Creator within, I am led. As I listen to my creativity, I am led to my Creator. I am willing to create. I am willing to learn to let myself create. I am willing to let God create through me. I am willing to be of service through my creativity. I am willing to experience my creative energy. I am willing to use my creative talents. Mending any mending is another task. So anything that needs to be completed in your life, tying up those unfinished projects, which my mom calls with her sewing UFOs, for unfinished objects. And so if you finish up any of those UFOs in your life, then you're literally bringing a creative baby to full term so that then your womb is open and available for the next creative baby to begin being birthed. Compared to when we leave things unfinished, then we have all these stillborns or ones that are not yet complete that then we judge because they're sitting right there, and it just feels so disappointing. So if instead we just give ourselves the grace to wrap those things up, what a gift. Repot any pinched or languishing plants. So putting them into bigger pots will give them more space to grow and flourish. And we also can track. I always think it's nice to really pay attention to when we actually replanted something so that then we can really mark our own anniversary of when we grew in our own awareness and gave that plant an opportunity to grow extra root space too. Select a good jar. A what? A jar, a box, a vase, a container, something to put your fears, your resentments, your hopes, your dreams, your worries into. Use your God jar. Use your God jar. Start with your fear list from task 1 above. When worried, remind yourself it's in the jar. God's got it. Then take the next action. So that's fun. Wow. All right. So start a God jar for all your fears and then know that God's got it. That's a fun idea. Now check how. Honestly, what would you most like to create? Open-minded. What oddball paths would you dare to try? Willing, what appearances are you willing to shed to pursue your dream? And that's really part of the transformation of self-image, is understanding who you choose to be in the next now moment, regardless of who you were previously. List 5 people you can talk to about your dreams and with whom you feel supported to dream and then plan. Making sure that you're not sharing your heart's dreams with somebody who has a competing agenda either. Somebody who would feel like they were going to lose something, including you, for you to be able to become that which you aspire to be. Because the thing about the ones who love us the most, they don't want necessarily for us to actually get where we want to go, because that requires leaving them. And so there is an element of sabotage in the people that are most connected to us because of what they'll lose if you change. So understand that that list of 5 may even be a long list. It isn't necessarily as good to have more friends or acquaintances than it is to have a few really firm and tight ones that you can truly trust and that want you to win regardless of what it will cost them for you to do so. Those are the ones you share your dreams with. The ones that you already know are attached to you being a certain way, you already know they're not safe to share your dream with. So give yourself the grace of letting them be someone you don't talk to about the things that you're working on. Reread this book and share it with a friend. Remember that the miracle is one artist sharing with another. Trust God and trust yourself, which is the final task before we go to the check-in section. And I am feeling like going back over this and actually doing a deeper dive into this study is the name of the game, though I'll get more clarity in the next week, because I do believe there are a lot of things that are shifting as I wrap up this book, and then also Saint Germain on Alchemy. We're getting near the end of that too. So how many days this week did you do your morning pages? Have you accepted them as a permanent spiritual practice? How was the experience for you? Did you do your artist date this week? Will you allow yourself these on a permanent basis as well? What did you do? How did you feel? Did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? And were there any other significant issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? Describe them. As a recovering creative, you now have put many hours into your recovery over these 3 months, changing rapidly as you grew. For your recovery to continue, you require a commitment to further creative plans. The contract on the following page will help you accomplish them. So there is a creativity contract, and I will share it to the screen in hopes that it allows you to take a screenshot and then you can personalize that for yourself. And it says, "My name is Laura Jean Ellen Hamilton. I am a recovering creative person. To further my growth and my joy," and I guess you can't really read it with me right now, so I'm just going to read this out and you can insert your name where I say mine. "To further my growth and my joy, I now commit myself to the following self-nurturing plans. Morning pages have been an important part of my self-nurturing and self-discovery. I, Laura J., hereby commit myself to continuing to work with them for the next 90 days. Artist dates have been integral to my growth in self-love and my deepening joy in living. I, your name, am willing to commit to another 90 days of weekly artist dates for self-care. In the course of following the artist's way and healing my artist within, I have discovered that I have a number of creative interests. While I hope to develop many of them, my specific commitment for the next 90 days is to allow myself to more fully explore what do you want to explore and commit to that. My concrete commitment to a plan of action is a critical part of nurturing my artist. For the next 90 days, my planned self-nurturing creative action plan is what? I have chosen as my creative colleague and as my creative backup. I am committed to a weekly phone check-in. I have made the above commitments and will begin my new commitment on," and then sign and date your creativity contract, which is very interesting from a personal perspective, and yet something that I'm going to hold to myself until it is ready to share with you in its fullness, because I too am learning and growing and have done through this process. So very much do appreciate you for joining in. And there are 2 pages that I'll read as the ending to this series, and then I'll actually turn the video off and then get over to my desk, and then I'll do some card pulls if you want to tune in for that too. The Artist's Way. In ending this book, I yearned for a final flourish, some last fillip of the imagination that would sign the book. This was a small and harmless conceit, I felt, until I remembered the number of times I have enjoyed a painting and been distracted by the outsized artistic signature of its maker. So, no final flourishes here. The truth is that this book should probably end with an image for another book, from another book. As I recall it, and this may be my imagination and not my memory at work, an early edition of Thomas Merton's 7-Story Mountain featured a mountain on its book jacket. The 7-Story Mountain, no doubt. Maybe it did and maybe it didn't. I read the book many years ago, a precocious 12-year-old. What I conjure now is a mountain of Himalayan proportions, with a path winding upward to its height. That path, the spiral path, is how I think of the Artist's Way. As we pursue climbing it, we circle back in the same views over and over at slightly different altitudes. I've been here before, we think, hitting a spell of drought. And in a sense, we have been. The road is never straight. Growth is a spiral process, doubling back on itself, reassessing and regrouping. As artists, our progress is often dogged by the rough terrain or storms. A fog may obscure the distance we have covered or the progress we have made toward our goal. While the occasional dazzling vista may grace us, it is really best to proceed a step at a time, focusing on the path beneath our feet as much as the heights still before us. The Artist's Way is a spiritual journey, a pilgrimage home to the self. Like all great journeys, it entails dangers of the trail, some of which I have tried to enumerate in this book. Like all pilgrims, those of us on the Artist's Way will often be graced by fellow travelers and invisible companions. What I call my marching orders, others may sense in themselves as a still small voice or even more simply a hunch. The point is that you will hear something if you listen for it. Keep your soul cocked for guidance. When Mark Bryan began cornering me into writing this book. He had just seen a Chinese film about Tibet called The Horse Thief. It was an indelible film for him, a classic of the Beijing school, a film we have since searched for in Chinese video stores and film archives to no avail. Mark told me about the film's central image, another mountain, a prayerful journey up that mountain, on bended knee, step, lie prostrate, stand and straighten, another step, lie prostrate. In the film, this journey was the reparation that a thief and his wife had to make for damaging their society by dishonoring themselves through thievery. I have wondered since then if the mountain that I see when thinking of the artist's way isn't another mountain best climbed in the spirit of reparation, not to others, but to ourselves. Word for it. I wish I could take language and fold it like cool, moist rags. I would lay words on your forehead. I would wrap words on your wrists. There, my words would say, or something better. I would ask them to murmur, hush, and shh, shh, it's all right. I would ask them to hold you all night. I wish I could take language and dab and soothe and cool, where fever blisters and burns, where fever turns yourself against you. I wish I could take language and heal the words that were the wounds you have no names for. JC. And that is the end of where we will come together for this first reading of The Artist's Way. And I say thank you for showing up. Thank you for being part of this experience. And if you would like to get a card pull for the week ahead, then I hope that you will come back on YouTube, and I'll be glad to share a 3-card pull reading from 3 decks over on my desk. So I hope to see you there. Thank you for tuning in today. And if you care to share with anybody that you feel could use a little dose of faith and the recognition that we're all artists, because ultimately we are painting the masterpiece of our life, then please do let them know that I do these services on Sunday just because I feel like we need to be able to gather and we need to understand who we truly are so that we can truly rise up from here together stronger. And so, on that note, I will bid you adieu and wish you a wonderful day and see you soon. Toodaloo. Laura J. Namaste. Namago.